One begins to suspect that the reform experiment in local government was not merely wobbling, but pirouetting into absurdity. The latest little tableau from Kent County Council, that proud flagship of Reform UK competence, gives us a perfect miniature of what happens when ideological swagger meets administrative reality. The council has repainted bright yellow zigzags outside a school that shut down in 2016. The school has been closed for the better part of a decade, a school sold to Homes England, a school whose gates are locked, whose pupils have long since grown into teenagers, yet the bushes came out and the lines were restored with gusto as if preparing for the first bell of term. It costs £350, we're told, and sits within £1 million budget for road markings. How reassuring, as if the problem were the invoice rather than the idiocy behind it. What this reveals is a council in which the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing and neither hand appears to have read a map. It's a council that talks endlessly about fiscal discipline while literally painting warnings for children who do not exist outside a building that doesn't function. Kafka would have applauded the symbolism. Mike Whiting called it a farce. He was too gentle. A farce at least has timing, wit and internal logic. This is the municipal equivalent of a custard pie dropped on the floor by a clown who then apologises for the spillage while assuring everyone that such misfires are exceedingly rare. Peter Osborne's statement that the repainting was carried out in error carries the comic understatement of a Victorian curate explaining that the bishop has misplaced the cathedral. This is meant to be Reform UK's showcase of governing ability. Kent is their testbed, their prototype, their proud demonstration that the party can handle real responsibility. It can't even handle a bottle of paint. It can't even handle what is this? Not a bottle of paint, it's a jug of paint. No, it's a tin of paint. Instead we have a council repainting ghosts. It's a portrait of a political movement that rails against waste and bureaucracy, yet cannot organise the simplest cross-departmental communication. The school closed almost 10 years ago. Everyone in the area knows this, yet the system Reform UK presides over speaks so little to itself that the machinery simply whirs forward, obeying a checklist that no adult has bothered to update because the Reform people don't know the area. It would be comic if it were not occurring in a county that pleads poverty every time a genuine service for real people is at stake. When the issue is potholes, social care, public transport or emergency expenditure, the coffers are empty. When the issue is repainting irrelevant markings outside a derelict site, suddenly fresh paint flows like a municipal river. All this from a council that erupted recently into a shouting match so volcanic that 4 councillors were suspended for bringing the party into disrepute. Then another 5 went. One begins to wonder whether the paint crew are the only employees not currently arguing with each other. This is governance by tantrum and chance. Instead, in Kent we see a council re-enacting the mistakes of the very bureaucracy they claim to despise. Operation Clean Sweep appears to have targeted anyone capable of objecting. What remains is a leadership that shouts, sacks, apologises, and in its spare time paints warnings for non-existent children on a non-functioning roadway. The defenders will say £350 is nothing. But it's never about the amount, it's about the principle. It's about the spectacle of a party that claims to be the grown-up alternative, revealing that it cannot tell the living from the dead on its own streets. If Reform UK cannot maintain a list of which schools still exist, one shudders to imagine their attempts at long-term planning, financial structuring or regional development, let alone running a country. Repainting a decade-dead school entrance is not an accident, it's a diagnosis of deep disorder. In the end, this episode is a perfect metaphor for Reform UK's wider political offer. They repaint old lines, they shout new slogans, but the institution beneath is empty, empty, empty. The building is closed, the pupils have left, the warning signs serve nobody. It's an administration that mistakes motion for progress and a pot of fresh yellow paint for authority. Pots, not cans. And so the people of Kent are left with a council that insists it takes financial responsibility seriously, even as it demonstrates the exact opposite. A council led by a party that claims to represent renewal, yet cannot stop itself resurrecting defunct symbols of a past it doesn't understand. It would be magnificent if it were not so mortifying. This is what happens when rhetoric outruns competence. The lines on South Down Road are now bright and crisp once more. The question is whether Reform UK's credibility can ever be restored with similar ease. At present it looks as though the only thing they can keep clear is the entrance to a school that no longer exists. As well as the space between their ears.